When you think about the most exciting stories in global tech right now, Africa's digital economy has to be right at the top of the list. It's this landscape just bursting with potential. But it's also facing some really serious headwinds. So in this explainer, we're going to break down this incredible story of promise and, well, peril.
For the past decade or so, something really revolutionary has been happening across Africa, a kind of digital gold rush that is fundamentally changing its economic future.
Okay, so the big question right off the bat is how on earth did this happen so fast? How did an entire continent basically jump over a whole generation of infrastructure to become this mobile-first powerhouse?
And this chart, wow, it just tells the whole story, doesn't it? While the rest of the world was busy building out landline networks for decades, Africa just leapfrogged the whole thing and went straight to mobile. You can see it right here. Landlines pretty much flatlined, while mobile phones just exploded across the continent. This wasn't just about making phone calls. This was the bedrock for everything that came next.
So once pretty much everyone had a phone in their pocket, this huge new market for digital services just appeared out of nowhere. And, where there's a market, investors are going to follow. Venture capital money just flooded in, creating this incredible surge you see here, hitting its peak in 2022. It was a massive signal to the world that Africa's tech scene was absolutely the real deal.
And just to give you a sense of how explosive this was, the number of tech startups getting funding multiplied by 7 times in just 7 years. Sevenfold, between 2015 and 2022. That is one of the fastest growth rates you'll find anywhere on the planet.
And what's so cool about this is that the boom wasn't just happening in 1 or 2 cities. Sure, you had the big established hubs like Lagos and Nairobi just killing it, but new hotspots were popping up all over the place. And these startups, they weren't just copying Silicon Valley ideas. No way. They were building real, tangible solutions for local problems. Think about M-Pesa, completely changing mobile payments in Kenya, or Twiga Foods connecting farmers directly to urban markets. This was innovation from the ground up.
Okay, so with all this incredible grassroots energy bubbling up, it was obvious something big was happening. Leaders and policymakers saw this massive opportunity and started asking a really important question. How do we take all this momentum and build something truly transformative with it?
And the answer they came up with was this. The Digital Trade Protocol, or DTP for short. This is an incredibly ambitious plan to create one single, unified digital market across the entire continent. The goal here is to tear down the digital borders, making it just as easy for a startup in Ghana to sell to a customer in Kenya as it is to sell to someone right next door.
But this isn't just about making it easier to sell stuff online. It's way deeper than that. It's about building a solid foundation of trust and opportunity for everyone. For instance, harmonizing regulations means that data privacy laws could be the same from Nigeria to South Africa. That makes it so much simpler and safer for businesses to operate everywhere. It's all designed to build confidence for consumers, and, this is crucial, to make sure that small businesses, women, and young entrepreneurs can all get in on the action.
So what's the payoff? Well, the potential impact is just staggering. If this is implemented successfully, it's projected to increase trade between African nations by over 50%. This is all about creating a powerful, self-sustaining market right there on the continent.
And what does that actually look like for individual countries? Well, for a nation like Ghana, this one agreement could mean a $22 billion jump in its exports. That's not just a number, that's a total game changer. But at the end of the day, what really matters is jobs, right? It's about people. And in Nigeria alone, the growth in digital trade from this protocol could support up to 2.7 million jobs. That is the real-world impact we're talking about.
But just as this incredible vision was starting to feel real, the global economic party came to a screeching halt. The era of easy money was over, and a harsh funding winter arrived.
And man, this graph shows just how brutal it was. The venture capital collapse was global, for sure, but the drop in Africa was steeper than anywhere else. A 52% fall in just 2 years. The gold rush had suddenly been frozen solid.
In this quote, it just hits the nail on the head. You see, unlike more mature tech scenes, Africa's startup ecosystem was still young, still growing. So when the funding suddenly went into reverse, it didn't just slow things down. For a lot of promising young companies, it was a threat to their very survival.
So you might be asking, why was the hit so bad for Africa? Well, this chart here tells a pretty stark story.
About 80% of the venture funding was coming from outside the continent. And when there's global uncertainty, foreign investors are usually the first to pull back their money, which exposed a huge vulnerability in the whole ecosystem. And it's not just about the money, you know? There are some real on-the-ground challenges, too. You can't have a single digital market without solid infrastructure everywhere. But the reality is, it's patchy. As you can see here, countries like Ghana and Namibia still have these big digital divides between their cities and rural areas. That holds back the full potential of a plan like the DTP.
But look, this is not a story of doom and gloom, not at all. Despite these really serious perils, the story doesn't end here. Facing these challenges has sparked some truly innovative solutions to bridge these gaps and keep the dream of a digital Africa alive and kicking.
Let's talk about one of the biggest hurdles, just getting people online in the first place. A groundbreaking partnership between Airtel Africa and Starlink is showing a completely new way to solve this exact problem.
So how does this actually work? Well, it's pretty genius actually. Instead of spending a fortune laying fiber optic cables to really remote villages, they're mixing satellite technology right into the mobile network. This lets them zero in on those coverage gaps and provide essential connectivity. We're talking texts and basic data so that no one gets left out of the digital economy.
And remember that big problem with relying on foreign money? Well, there's a huge push to solve that by looking inward and building up local funding. We're seeing real movement here. Countries like Ghana and Nigeria are actually changing their laws to allow their own massive pension funds to invest in local startups. The goal is simple: create a tougher, more resilient ecosystem that isn't so vulnerable to what's happening in the rest of the world.
All right, so we've been on quite a journey, right? We've seen this incredible, shining promise of a single digital market, but also the very real dangers of a funding crisis and infrastructure gaps. And that brings us to the final, critical question.
So it all comes down to this, doesn't it? The continent has the plan, it has the talent, the drive, the entrepreneurial fire. The digital trade protocol is the blueprint for the future. But you can't build that future without building bridges, both digital ones and financial ones. The defining question now is whether the investment and the collaboration needed, both from inside Africa and from the outside world, will get there in time to make this incredible potential a reality.